breaking stereotypes. Although much has already been said about pendulums, I want to give new examples of how they can lead astray. Ask yourself, is the pendulum imposing someone else's goal on you under some plausible pretext? For example, a kind soul is called to help. These can be defenseless animals, wounded soldiers, hungry children, or anyone else in need of care. Or somewhere they are fighting for freedom, and your brave heart is needed there. A kind soul immediately rushes on wings to where it is needed. So in fact, this is not a kind soul, but a kind mind, and not at all kind, but simply soulless. This mind forgot about its soul and rushed to help the souls of others. It is the same as abandoning your children in trouble and saving strangers. The good mind has driven its soul into a case and is left alone with its rational thoughts. An inner emptiness has formed, and it needs to be filled with something. Pendulums immediately offer all sorts of compensation. They will show you the widest range of ways to spend your energy for someone else's benefit. But isn't it because a person so vividly responds to other people's calls that he has emptiness inside? What generally accepted stereotypes pass off as kindness and responsiveness may in fact be spiritual emptiness. The spiritual emptiness of the mind is compensated by caring for others, while the needs of its soul remain unsatisfied. It is advantageous for pendulums to pass off caring for others as generosity of soul. As you can see, pendulums can skillfully form very convincing stereotypes. But this is all beautiful demagogy. And what about your own soul? Will your mind really abandon it for others? That is why I so strongly recommend turning away from pendulums and letting your soul out of its case. Having loved yourself, you will find your goal. On the way to it, you will do a lot of truly good and useful deeds. And of course, you will help many poor and unfortunate people, because you will have great opportunities. But until the goal is defined, be very restrained in relation to any calls to you. Your internal and external importance should be at a minimum level. Pendulums especially need additional energy during their battles. Here are two pendulums about to start a battle. One declares himself a just liberator and accuses the other of being a dictator and a potentially dangerous aggressor. The just pendulum actually just needs to swallow its competitor, take possession of his oil or other resources. But this is hushed up, and a wide propaganda campaign is launched in defense of freedom and justice. A person who has become imbued with self-importance and has fallen for the pendulum says to himself, "I will liberate the oppressed people. I will show this dictator and aggressor." Meanwhile, another pendulum forms its own camp of adherents. The dictator pendulum claims that it is actually good, but the one who has declared himself a liberator is in fact an aggressor. Another person, filled with self-importance, is seething with indignation. "What? They declared war and did not ask me? I will go out into the streets and furiously express my protest." He can even rush to war and give his life for someone else's freedom. As you can see, adherents of both camps are drawn into the battle of pendulums for the reason that their internal and external importance is inflated, and inside there is a spiritual emptiness, which ultimately is not filled, but on the contrary, is further aggravated. After all, what do adherents get when they are drawn into the battle? The supporters of war convince themselves they have been deceived. In fact, this war is not needed. It brings trouble to all participants. The supporters of peace also get a slap on the nose. The very same defenseless people, which the pendulum aggressor attacked, hastily renounce their defeated ruler and are already smashing the embassy of the country defender of peace, stealing its humanitarian aid, and begin to grovel before the aggressor. It is quite obvious that all the high ideals for which the adherents fight in the battle of pendulums are like soap bubbles. Inside there is spiritual emptiness, and on the surface, there is an iris of inflated importance. Is all this fuss necessary for the souls of the adherents? When the goal you have defined serves not you personally, but others, you can check it in a simple way. If caring for others is imposed from the outside, no matter in what way, then this is someone else's goal. If caring for others comes from within, from the depths of your soul, then this goal can be yours. For example, I just love to mess around with my pets. It's not a burden for me. Or, I love my children, grandchildren, and I like to take care of them, see them grow up, and rejoice with them. However, when they grow up, you will have to look for another goal. No one but you can show you your goal. There is only one way to find it. Drop importance, turn away from pendulums, and turn to your soul. Love yourself first and foremost, and take care of yourself first. This is the only way to find the way to your goal. Another mistake of the mind is that it immediately tries to assess the reality of achieving the goal and calculate all the ways and means in advance. After all, everything must be reasonable. If the reality of achieving the goal is questioned, then the goal is either rejected in principle or put on the back burner. With such an attitude, a person will never be able to tune in to the target line of life. On the contrary, thinking about the means of achieving, a person tunes in to the line of failure. After all sorts of scenarios of defeat are scrolled through in thoughts. The goal will not be achieved by ordinary means, and a miracle will not happen either. A difficult task is rarely realized within the framework of the usual worldview, and this should really be exactly so, since the parameters of the doubter do not correspond to the target line in any way. A miracle will happen only if you break the usual stereotype and think not about the means to achieve it, but about the goal itself. Then what previously seemed unreal will suddenly show itself from the other side. Unexpectedly, as if by chance, a completely real way to achieve the goal will open up. In the ordinary worldview, this will look like a miraculous coincidence. In this case, the mind will only shrug its shoulders. Who could have known? From the point of view of transurfing, there is no miracle here. You simply tuned in to the frequency of the target line, gained the determination to have, and the external intention transferred you to this line of life. And there new opportunities appear and doors open, which you could not even suspect on the previous line. We are so accustomed to established stereotypes that we take them for valuable experience accumulated by humanity. In fact, stereotypes are formed by pendulums, and people are only forced to agree with them. The whole society is based on pendulums that live and develop independently, according to their own laws, as energy informational entities that have subjugated their followers. Their influence on a person is so great that his mind literally becomes clouded and loses the ability to think independently and consciously. Take, for example, the crimes of the German Nazis during World War II. They did terrible things. Maybe the fascists were very cruel people with pathological sadistic inclinations? No, most of them were the same normal people as you and me. They had families. They loved their loved ones and cared for them. Returning from the war, they joined the peaceful life and again became ordinary good-natured citizens. Why does a respectable family man, finding himself at war, turn into a beast? Because his mind is at the mercy of the pendulum. The followers involved in the battle of pendulums literally do not know what they are doing. This is especially clear in the sometimes senseless and cruel actions of teenagers. The young and fragile psyche is especially defenseless and susceptible to influence. Take each such teenager individually. Is he cruel? Not at all, and his parents will swear by it. But having fallen under the influence of a pendulum, for example, having become part of a crowd, he ceases to be aware of what he is doing. The mind of a crowd member literally sleeps. because it is caught in the pendulum loop. Remember the mechanism of induced transition? All the evil, cruelty, and violence in this world come not from the supposedly low nature of people, but from the greedy nature of pendulums. The human soul knows no evil. All evil is concentrated in the mind as a residue from the destructive influence of pendulums. Pendulums provoke people to use violence not only against others, but also against themselves. How do you like the brave slogan? He who does not risk, does not drink champagne? It contains a provocation, a call to put your well-being or life on the line for the sake of someone else's idea. Of course, if the idea is not someone else's, but your own, and the risk is justified, then it may be worth taking the risk. However, there is nothing more stupid than an unjustified risk that threatens your health and life. Pendulums provoke a person to take a risky action because the fear, tension, and excitement that the risk-taker experiences are their favorite energy dishes. The pendulum, using the stereotype of false courage, or with the help of a specific follower, tries to hook its victim. Well, don't be afraid. Show what you can do. You don't want to look like a coward, do you? And a person filled with inner importance rushes to prove the opposite to everyone and to himself. He is trapped in a false stereotype. It does not occur to him that he is not obliged to prove anything to anyone and can sneeze at the opinion of the manipulators. A feeling of inferiority makes a person follow the pendulum. Obviously, unjustified risk is not a manifestation of courage at all, but a desire to hide one's own, again, false complexes. The mind irresponsibly manages the life of its soul in favor of dubious stereotypes. The poor little soul, curled up in a ball, looks with horror at what the rabid mind is doing, but can do nothing. The mind behaves towards the soul at best like a chronic loser, venting his worthlessness on his family, and at worst, like a drunk and maddened beast beating his defenseless child. Let your mind wake up from its viscous obsession. It has a priceless, amazing treasure, its soul. By connecting soul and mind, you will gain true freedom and strength. Do not be afraid to break the stereotypes formed by pendulums. The true nature of many things in this world will be revealed to you. By breaking stereotypes, you open locked doors. Your goals. I assume from the very beginning that you have your own secret desire, and you have at least a rough idea of how to achieve it. Although even if you have no idea how the desire can come true, it's not scary. If you have the determination to have, there will be an option. The most important thing is to determine the true secret desire and find the determination to have and act. Intention turns desire into a goal. Desire without intention will never come true. But first, you need to clearly understand what you want from life. Vague formulations like, "I want to be rich and happy," do not work out. Imagine that you are walking around the city without any specific goal, just wandering wherever your eyes look. Where will you end up? Unknown. If there is a specific destination, then sooner or later you will be there, even if the route is not exactly known. The same is in life. If you do not have a goal, then you are a paper boat in a stormy river. If you have a goal and you strive for it, you can achieve it. But you may not achieve it. There is only one case where you can be 100% sure that you will achieve your goal. If it is your goal, and you are going to it through your door, in this case, nothing and no one can interfere, because the key of the frail of your soul perfectly fits the lock of your path. No one can take yours away from you, so there will be no problems with achieving your goal. The only problem is finding your goal and door. First, the goal is not determined by any temporary needs. It should answer the question, what do you want from life? What will make your life joyful and happy? Only this matters. you can consider everything else as chaff from pendulums. Find one main goal. Its achievement will entail the fulfillment of all other desires. If nothing specific comes to mind, you can first formulate, for example, such a general goal. You want comfort and well-being from life. What do you mean by comfort and well-being? The need to have a house, a car, nice clothes, and other attributes of a comfortable life can be replaced by one goal: to get a high-paying job. But as you understand, this is not even a goal, but a door, and an undefined one at that. A high-paying job can be replaced by a more specific formulation: to become a very good or unique specialist in your field. What does your soul lie to? But the question arises, will this work fill the whole meaning of life? If so, then you are lucky. Your goal coincides with your door. Let's say your soul lies to a certain area of science, culture, or art. Then, doing what you love, you will make discoveries and create masterpieces. Happiness on such a lifeline is here and now, and not somewhere ahead. All the attributes of a comfortable life, which others achieve with such difficulty, will come by themselves as something self-evident. After all, you are on your own path. If the business, even the favorite one, is not the only thing that will bring you joy and fill your whole life with attributes of comfort, then this business probably can be considered a door, but it cannot be called a goal. Do not forget that your goal should turn life into a holiday with all the accompanying attributes. Do not think about the means to achieve it, that is, about the doors. The main thing is to define the goal, and the doors will be found over time. Answer yourself the question, what is your soul yearning for? What will turn your life into a holiday? Cast aside all thoughts about the prestige and inaccessibility of the supposed goal. You should not be interested in any restrictions. If you do not believe, then at least pretend that everything is available to you, and all that remains is to choose. Do not be shy and order to the fullest. Did you want to have a boat? What about your yacht? Did you want to have an apartment? What about your mansion? Did you want to be the head of a department? What about the position of president of a corporation? Did you want to work hard to earn a lot of money? How about not working at all and living your life to your heart's content? You wanted to buy a cheap plot of land and build a house? How about your own island in the Mediterranean? These what about questions can go on and on. You can't even imagine how modest your requests are compared to what you can get if you walk towards your goal through your door. Don't make a wish with your mind. Take the time to find out what your soul wants. The expression, "I like it," speaks for itself. It shows not an opinion, but an attitude. An opinion is a product of the mental activity of the mind. An attitude comes from the depths of the soul, so only it can serve as a determinant of your own and other people's goals. When defining your goal, you should ask yourself, how do I feel in the shell of an achieved goal? Let's say you made a wish. To check whether this is your desire or not, ask yourself two questions. First, do I really need this? Second, do I really need this? Try to fit all the features of someone else's goal to this desire. Do you really want this with all your heart? Or do you just want to want it? Are you trying to prove something to yourself and others? Do you really want this? Maybe this is a tribute to fashion or prestige. A disabled person may think that he wants to skate with all his heart. In fact, such a goal does not come from the heart, but from resentment for one's own inferiority. The goal beckons with its inaccessibility. If the goal is difficult to achieve, try to give it up and observe yourself. If you feel relief, then this is someone else's goal. If you feel indignation and protest, then the goal may be yours. The only reliable criterion in choosing a goal can be mental discomfort. This is a negative reaction of the soul to the decision already made by the mind. The state of mental comfort can be checked only after the mind has made a decision in defining its goal. Imagine that you have achieved the goal and everything is behind you. As soon as this is done, you need to stop discussing the goal and listen to the feelings of the soul. Are you feeling good or bad? If pleasure is mixed with fear, or a painful feeling of some kind of burden, or a sense of necessity, some kind of obligation, then the soul clearly says no. The mind cannot even imagine what troubles are hidden in the goal, wrapped in a beautiful package. But the soul feels it. The feeling of discomfort can be vague and unclear. Do not confuse mental stiffness with discomfort. As mentioned in the previous chapter, stiffness or a kind of shyness comes from the unusualness of the situation. Is this really all for me? Mental discomfort is a painful feeling of oppression or burden that manifests itself weakly against the background of optimistic reasoning of the mind. Mental stiffness can be eliminated with the help of slides. Mental discomfort, never. The biggest mistake would be to think that you are not worthy of it. Utter nonsense. Pendulums have forced you to hang such a primitive label on yourself. You deserve all the best. In any case, do not rush to make a final decision. Try testing your goal with slides. If you see that over time, the oppressive feeling does not go away, then you are dealing with mental discomfort. If you experience mental discomfort from some aspects of the goal itself, then it is alien. If you feel emotional discomfort from the knowledge that the goal is difficult to achieve, it means that it is not in your comfort zone, or you have chosen someone else's door. Do not think about the means to achieve it until you have clearly defined your goal. If you cannot clearly imagine yourself in the intended role, perhaps you are not yet ready to accept it. The comfort zone can be expanded with the help of slides. You do not need to worry about doors. All that is required of you is the determination to have. Then the external intention will sooner or later point to the right door. Do not give in to the temptation to define your goal as money. Like, if I have money, then all my problems will be solved. I know what to buy with it. Remember the case stuffed with bills in the chapter slides? It was said there that money cannot serve as a goal, but is only an accompanying attribute. You can immediately agree with this position, but this is not a completely trivial statement. We are all so accustomed to money that we can translate almost everything into a monetary equivalent. But money is an abstract category intended for the mind, and not for the soul. The soul has no idea what to do with money, since it cannot think abstractly. The end goal must be clear to the soul. The soul needs to know what you want to buy for the money you asked for. A house, a casino, an island, and so on. The means are not involved as long as the soul likes it. As long as your internal accounting calculates the means to achieve the goal, you will not be able to determine the goal and tune in to the target line of life. Activate your overseer and pull yourself up every time your mind tries to avoid answering the question, what do I want from life? The stereotype of the goal being difficult to achieve is the most persistent, so you will need patience. The mind will try to answer another question. How can this be achieved? Now let your soul tell the mind, shut up, this is not your concern. We are choosing a toy. You should strive for freedom from destructive pendulums, but this does not mean that you need to isolate yourself altogether. The whole society is built on their influence, so you either go to the Himalayas or look for your pendulums. It is easy for hermits to talk to eternity while being far away from them. But if you return such a hermit to the aggressive environment of pendulums, he will immediately lose his balance and detachment. Your goal also belongs to some pendulum. There is no threat to you in this, as long as the goal is true. Find your goal, and the pendulum will be forced to make you a favorite. You can even create a new pendulum. The main thing is to exercise your right to freedom of choice and not allow pendulums to establish control over you. You will not be able to determine the goal through analysis and reflection. Only your soul can identify the real goal. Analysis is the activity of the mind. The soul does not know how to think. It can only see and feel. The task of the mind in the process of searching for a goal is not to search. The mind will do it as usual, that is, by analyzing and building logical chains based on generally accepted stereotypes and cliches. If one could define one's path in this way, all people would be happy. The task of the mind is to pass all external information through itself, paying special attention to the state of mental comfort. The mind should only make an installation. I am looking for something that will turn my life into a holiday, and then simply let external information in and observe the feelings of the soul from the position of this installation. An active search for a path will lead to nothing. Do not worry, wait and watch. If there is an installation for searching, the necessary information will come itself. At a certain moment, you will receive some information that will awaken a keen interest in you. The main thing is that the mind at this moment does not interfere with its thoughts, but simply pays attention to the state of mental comfort. You can speed up the arrival of the necessary information yourself. For this, it will be very useful to expand your range of interests. Go to places you have not been before, museums, excursions, movies, hiking, to another part of the city, a bookstore, anywhere. You do not need to actively search. Just expand the range of external information and observe. Give yourself an indefinite period of time. Do not squeeze yourself into time frames, and do not turn the search for a goal into an obligation. Just keep this attitude in your thoughts. I am looking for something that will turn my life into a holiday. Monitor your feelings more closely than you did before. Let this attitude constantly work in the background. Pass any information that comes to you through a questioning filter. How do I feel about this? Do I like it or not? Sooner or later, you will receive some sign or information from which something inside will seem to flutter. Oh, I like this. Think carefully about this information from all sides, carefully observing the state of mental comfort. But now you have finally managed to get rid of the temptation to think about the means, and you have defined the goal. When the determination to have and act in the name of achieving this goal appears, then the layer of your world will undergo an amazing transformation. And this is what will happen. You have freed yourself from the burden of false goals and breathed freely. You no longer need to force yourself to do what your soul does not lie in. You have given up the struggle for illusory happiness in the future and allowed yourself to have it here and now. Previously, you tried to fill the spiritual emptiness with cheap surrogates that pendulums offered. And now the mind has released the soul from its case, and an amazing feeling of lightness and freedom has appeared, as if spring has come and you have awakened from a long winter hibernation. The oppressive feeling of oppression and burden has disappeared. Agree, it is much more pleasant to move towards your own goal, realizing that you have found within yourself what you previously unsuccessfully tried to find in the outside world. Your mind has thrown out the unnecessary rubbish of other people's goals, refused useless thoughts about the means of achieving them, and simply let the necessary task into the layer of your world. The soul itself chose the toy and jumped and clapped its hands with joy. You broke the false stereotype and allowed yourself to have, despite the imaginary inaccessibility of the goal. Therefore, the doors that were previously closed opened before you. Here, the mind finally realized that the goal is really achievable. Now life will turn into a holiday, since the joyful soul will run skipping after the mind that let the goal into the layer of its world. The soul and mind will happily walk hand in hand along the smooth and pleasant road to happiness, which is already here and now.